Okay, so we've just wrapped up SpongeBob's Dream. We should have only 5 spatulas in this level. In total, you should have 19 spatulas and either 7 or 8 socks leaving SpongeBob's Dream. So once you're done, go into the menu, and if you have the warp to Patrick, you want to warp to him. If you don't, then you would warp to Krabs, and this is where the sock route is going to fix itself, depending on your strats. So if you didn't already talk to Patrick, you would come over here and talk to him, get his sock, and now both routes would have 8 socks at this point. So come over to Goo Lagoon. You can do the taxi skip here by jumping around the side. If you don't want to do that, it's fine, just go into the taxi pad and take the cutscene. It's not that much slower. So you need to get a cruise boost somewhere over here. I don't really like all the cruise boost spots around here. It's pretty tough to get a cruise boost. This sign is the most common option. But since the sign moves around, I don't really like it that much. If you know how to do a manual cruise boost, you can do a cruise boost right here. But as you saw there, the problem with this spot is that you have to, the cruise bubble doesn't detonate itself on its own right here. So you have to manually detonate the cruise bubble in between cruise boosts if you do it right here. So that's what it would look like. You just have to press L an additional time in between cruise boosts. But either way, you want to come over here, you can bash up this way. Make sure you talk to Larry, by the way. You need his warp in this route. So I'm going to go over 2 different routes. So your 2 options for this segment right here is you can either go over to this island, and you can do a sponge glide to get over to where we're trying to go. And option number 2 is you can go this way and go over to where Mrs. Puff is and do a big jump off of that net over there in the water to get over to where we're trying to go. I'm going to be showing off this option because I think, well actually I'll probably show both. I'll probably show how to do both. So if you're doing the sponge glide route, bash up here, get this sock. And then you would come down here and do early towers glide. This is how I personally set it up. You can copy my standing position and my angle and my camera if you want. There's other setups you can do. There's the setup where you're facing the other direction as well, but I don't like that as much. Shift also goes over this in a lot more detail and a lot better in his any% tutorial. And again, that's going to be linked in the description if you're interested in seeing that, because a lot of strats are similar. But either way, jump, jump, spin, jump, slam. That was kind of a weird thing with that too, but it still worked. But instead of doing Vox Bash, we actually get to Cruise Boost right here. You can get a Cruise Boost, come up here, destroy the robot, and jump across. You can still do the Box Bash if you prefer that and you don't want to Cruise Boost an additional time. But I think the Cruise Boost is easier. Personally, like if you're on with your Cruise Boosting, it's pretty easy. And it's faster. But either way, you would switch to Patrick right here. As soon as you have destroyed that robot and have gotten to this point, you would switch to Patrick. But now I'm going to be showing the other route for Goo Lagoon Beach, which is faster by like 10-ish seconds. Okay, I didn't mean... Okay. You obviously wouldn't get this spatula right here. I'm going to leave it for consistency. So if you're doing this route, you would come over here and get this sock instead of the one that's over there. This sock is to make up for the one that you would get on the other island if you're doing early towers glide. So you can talk to Puff here, jump across. You can do a slam here to land on this part if you want. It's a little easier, but it's a little bit slower. You just want to jump across. You need to land right there, and I missed it. You need to land on that pole, and we need to make a jump across. And your cruise boost speed has to be really good to do this. If your cruise boost is slightly slow, you're not going to be able to make this jump. It's all about jump spacing. You just need to make sure your angle is good and you're spacing your jumps correctly. And this jump takes a little bit of practice to get down, but it's honestly pretty simple if your cruise boost speed is good enough and you've learned it. It is like 10-ish seconds faster than doing early towers glide, but early towers glide is pretty consistent if you've already learned that from like any %. Okay, so if you're doing the route with pole jump, once you land on the island, you need to get rid of your cruise boost and shoot the robot with a cruise bubble. Do not forget to do this, because you need to destroy the robot, and it's going to lose some time later if you don't do this. But both routes would sync up at this point, so you want to switch to Patrick, come over here to the melon, and we're going to go to pier. Okay, so Goo Lagoon is like the longest segment in the run, but it also has SBA, so that kind of makes up for it. So destroy all the robots in the bumper boats. We need to do this to get a spatula later. Okay, you can hit robots into each other in here and save some time, but I missed it, unfortunately. So you can either do this jump like I just did it to get up here, because we need to get the sock that's on top there. Or you can just go around like this. Both strats are like the same speed, so whatever's easier is honestly fine, whatever you find easier. But either way, you can come up here and go to the slide for a little bit of extra speed, save some time. And we need to jump across there. You want to land like on the fence or like right in front of the fence. You don't want to try and aim like right where the light post is, because you're going to just miss the jump. You need to aim a little bit more to the left, where like the red and white striped pole is, kinda, if you're doing it from right here. If that jump's a little too hard for you, you can just come down here and jump across, and it's a lot easier. If you're doing like no reset runs, I would recommend you get this checkpoint right here, because if you accidentally throw a tiki off the edge or something, you can drown and respawn right here. But either way, you need to grab this top tiki right here, and we're going to make our way over the skee ball machine with this one. You need to learn where specifically to throw these tikis on these platforms, and where to be standing as well. Just to make sure you're not throwing tikis off the edge every run. You can get rid of these robots if you want, but it's not really necessary. You want to get rid of the hammer bot at some point, either like before you grab the first tiki or before you grab the second one, but it doesn't really matter when you do it. Whatever you do, do not stack these tikis. Okay, so now I'm going to teach you the faster setup from outside the machine. Actually, I'll teach the slower one first, because it's not really that important. So you want to be holding forward into the ramp right here, and you want to be looking at like the bottom of the screen to make sure the bottom edge of the ramp is pretty much parallel to the bottom edge of the screen. It's okay if it's a little bit off, but you want to be like in the center. So then you want to like press back. You can do that by pressing like straight down the stick or down to the D-pad. It kind of depends on what controller you're using, kind of. I said kind of twice, but it's fine. I think this setup will work. Yes, this should be a good setup. And then the second tiki throw is pretty free. You just need to be on the forward edge and just throw it in, and it'll work. So let's see how we did with this setup. So you need to grab this edge, and you need to be facing straight forward. If you're facing to the side, you need to grab the edge again and set it up again. And then just tap the bowl button, because you need to do like the shortest possible bowl to get the ball in between the tikis. So this was a good setup. This setup is going to serve us pretty well if we were to take that. But now I'm going to show the other setup, which some people call the frame perfect 30 setup. By the way, if you need to throw these tikis out of the machine at any point, that's really bad. I was not anticipating this. It's a bit of a problem. I'm gonna go grab the tikis again while I'm explaining some stuff. So, the important thing about... Oh wow, I did not want to do that. The important thing is you just don't want to get your tikis stacked in a place where it's going to be hard to unstack them, pretty much. If you have to redo your tiki throws at any point. I'm just going to get rid of the robots. So that setup is like what people were doing for like a year or something with the SBA 30. The majority of runners that have tried the outside setup, the one that I just showed, have said that it's easier than going inside the machine, and I agree. But there was a new setup found recently which tends to get faster SBA rates if you set it up correctly. And some people say that's even easier. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'm going to show it anyway in case you want to do it. Do not stack tikis. Generally, I like to throw my first tiki like over here, and then throw the second one over here just to make sure I don't stack them. But whatever works is fine. Okay, so right here, I'm lining up the top of the tiki, like the edges of it, with the first hole above it. You want to be like dead center, basically. So this might not work. I want to kind of redo this a little bit. Okay, this is pretty good. So then you want to press straight down for a bit, and then straight back up, and kind of tap forward. I believe this will work. So I'm looking at Patrick's right foot right now to make sure that I'm standing in the right spot. I'm using like the darker brown line on the ramp as a visual cue for this. If you're trying to copy the setup I'm using. This, that didn't look very good. I'm gonna redo this and try it again. This setup is a little more picky than the other setup, but it tends to get faster rates if you're having problems with getting slow SBAs. You need to be in a lot more precise of a position to do this setup. That's too far forwards. This is probably good. Again, I'm looking at Patrick's right foot, and I'm using the darker brown line. This looks pretty good. I'm going to try this and see if it works. This setup has a little bit more variability to it, in my opinion. Okay, this was a good setup, I think. So this right here is frame perfect 30. So either way, once you have your SBA going, you just need to come over here. You can cruise boost on this part, but it saves like barely any time. Actually, I need to check if I get the sock. We do get the sock, okay. I'm going to get the sock because it's consistent with the route. This is one of the socks you want to route out in the future if you can, because this sock is really slow. Just bowl the duplicator and get the sock. It's really easy. And if you have a slow SBA going, then The sock loses like no time if you're gonna have to wait for shinies anyway. But this setup was really fast, so this is grinding a lot of shinies. I'm gonna go over tower climb, but you do not have to do this if you don't want to. You would just pay the clam instead if you didn't want to do tower climb, but I'm gonna go over it anyway. So your goal is to get on the flags right here, and you need to jump in between the flag like borders, like where they intersect. You basically want to jump up the edges of the flags. This is pretty precise, and it doesn't save all that much time, so it's fine if you don't do it. But you need to jump up to right before that red flag. By the way, if you're wondering why the SBA is going on and off, it's because your camera needs to be in range of the skee ball machine for it to work. But yeah, you want to just jump over to this part, ledge grab, jump up, align your camera kind of like this. I'm looking at the wood pieces at the top because you need to, if you're, just watch where I ledge grab pretty much. You need to line up the part that I ledge grabbed with the front of the camera basically, because you want to be jumping straight back and then straight forward. I'm going to link a tutorial that Shift made like years ago on tower climb because that's how I learned it, and it's a really good tutorial for this kind of trick. It's kind of hard to explain. But either way, once you're up here, there is a cruise boosting strat that you can see if you watch other people's runs, but I'm going to go over the slide strat instead because it's easier. So just grab the spatula. And then jump down this way. I'm at the max number of shinies. That's pretty funny. So leaving this segment, you need at least 42,000 shiny objects to be safe on shinies throughout this run. So you shouldn't go under the pier until you're pretty sure you're going to be close to that. If you are under on shinies, you can do this to grind more shinies, because this wooden platform is like barely out of range. But yeah, you do not want to leave SBA until you have at least 42,000 shiny objects. If you go over, it's fine. If you go under, you're kind of in trouble. And you need to figure out backup strats for shinies. So yeah, warp to slip and slide under the pier. We're going to come over here and do the cutscene skip with this time. So run off of this tiki, slam, pick up the tiki, and throw it. If you're on other consoles, you might have to wait here on the G-Love cycle because the auto-targeting can target that instead of the tent. And if the G-Love is too far away, then you'll just miss the tent and you'll die, and you have to do it again. But yeah, enter the sea caves. So at this point, if you're on Xbox, you want to warp to through the sea caves. If you're on other consoles, you want to jump in the box. I guess if you're on Xbox 360 as well, by the way, warp to through the sea caves. If you're on other consoles, come over here and switch at the bus stop, and then leave. So here we're going to... actually I shouldn't have done that. Actually, it's fine. I'll just do the other route. So you want to get this spatula right here. I'll go over another route you can do for this segment. You want to come up here, get this sock, and then come down here and get this sock. And then come over here and you can death warp to get back on top of the castle. So you want to stand like on the edge of the second platform down, like right around where this wood pole is poking up through. Shoot a cruise bubble. You want to go like over these poles right here and then down, and look for where the auto target is, because as you can see, that activated the button for over the moat. If you miss that button, the spatula won't spawn, so you'll need to do it again. But yeah, once you spawn the spatula, you can just come down and get it. It's really fast. I'm going to show the other strategy for getting that spatula if you don't want to do that. Instead, you would come over here and shoot the button instead. I said instead twice. That's fun. By the way, pressing L will make the cruise bubble stop its animation faster. So yeah, you would shoot the button, come over here, get a cruise boost. Bash on up here. And we're gonna go over the moat with the spatula instead. Okay, I did not mean the ledge grab right there. Yeah, you would just come down here and get the spatula instead. But once you have the over the moat spatula, go warp to connect the towers. Yeah, obviously earlier in the video I warped back to Larry to show the other route, so I already have the spatula spawned, but when you warp back to Larry, he'll talk to you and then he'll spawn the spatula. Only if you've destroyed the robot on top of the crates. You need to do that to get this spatula. But yeah, once this segment is done, you should have 26 spatulas, 13 socks, and at least 42,000 shiny objects. But once you do, this is the end of Goo Lagoon, and you want to warp to on top of the pineapple.